Hey, what's up, people? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm extremely tired. My eyes are hurting. I've been reading all day. I've been typing all day. I've been doing research. I've been studying facts and the data and looking for contacts. I've been on the governor's website, Governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine. I've been looking up contacts for judges. I've been looking up contacts that the government make it hard to get. They make certain people's contacts very hard to get. They make it almost humanly impossible for you to reach certain people. But I sit back and I think about, the inmates who don't have a voice. I think back on inmates who are incarcerated, and some are rightfully incarcerated. But we can't act like we don't have a heart. We can't act like we don't have a soul. Someone has to speak out on the inhumane treatment that inmates and detainees are faced with. I'm focused right now on the Ohio prison. I'm focused on how inmates are not having resources to be able to protect themselves and keep themselves safe from this COVID virus. We're living in very dangerous times, very sensitive times, folks. At best, what the government should do at least provide inmates with a few masks to be able to keep them safe. Now, I get it that inmates or the corrections facility don't necessarily want to give inmates bottles of hand sanitizer because they could drink it and make alcohol and get high or whatever, get drunk off of it. We know that. There were kids, I remember looking at reports a few years ago where inmates were, or not inmates, but juveniles were drinking hand sanitizer and getting drunk off of it. Um, and there was a question that was put to the community: should hand sanitizer, in order to buy it, should they raise the age to buy it? Because these juveniles were drinking bottles of hand sanitizer. Oftentimes, folks, we tend to ignore or not pay attention to the issues that go on behind closed doors, behind those prison walls, behind those cell blocks, right? We typically, as citizens, we believe that if you did the crime, you did the time, or if you did the crime, you can do the time. So we typically don't care about what happens to inmates. We believe in the thing called natural consequences. And while that may be true, and yes, we should be tough on certain criminal offense, we have to remember that just because you have been sentenced to prison doesn't necessarily mean that you committed a crime. It doesn't necessarily means that you actually were the one who violated the law. A lot of folks are in prison that have been set up. They've been framed. They've been framed by victims. They've been framed, or alleged victims, I'm sorry. They've been framed by police departments, police unions, judges. They've been framed by district attorneys. So we have to be mindful that America has a history of sentencing people to prison and sentencing people to the death penalty, and they in fact were innocent. So we can't act like we're holier than thou. America has its a great deal of history of over sentencing people. America has a history of sentencing people of color to disproportionately longer sentences in jail for the same criminal offense as white counterparts. We can't act like we're naive. We can't. It's 2020. People have access to data. People have access to the internet. They can look up things for themselves. We can't lie about the facts anymore. The American criminal justice system has to get it right. So with all that said, people, the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections have reported that they have just about 3,400 cases of inmates who have contracted the coronavirus, and they have reported that 109 staff have been affected by this virus. They have reported that just in Pickaway prison, they have 1,000 inmates that were tested, and they tested positive for the coronavirus. In Marion Correctional Institution, it was reported that they had over 1,800 cases of coronavirus. And the question is, how did the United States government, or how did the Ohio government respond to this pandemic? Did they supply medical equipment? Did they supply the necessary PPE out to the inmates, out to the staff? You know, and so we have to look at these things because the last thing we want is another fatality. 5 people in Ohio prison have died due to the coronavirus. And if our government isn't taking the proper necessary steps to save a life, then that is a tragedy in itself. And so I'm asking organizations to galvanize behind this issue. I'm asking the NAACP of Ohio to get involved and to take real measures. I'm asking the ACLU of Ohio to get involved and take necessary precautions to prevent these tragedies. I'm asking ABLE and Legal Aid of Ohio, Northwest Ohio, and all of Ohio to take a stance against this. We're asking folks to fight for the release of non-violent offenders. We want to fight for the release of non-violent offenders. I'm also challenging attorneys in Toledo, Ohio. We understand your caseloads are full. We understand your caseloads are overwhelming. But I want attorneys in Ohio, attorneys in Toledo, to go above and beyond. I'm calling on my dear friends, Attorney L.C. Bankston. I'm calling on my friend, Phil Carlisle. I'm calling on my friend, Sarah Driftmeyer. I'm calling on my friend, Attorney Hassan. I'm calling on my friend, Attorney Ronnie Wingate. I'm calling on my friend, Attorney Rick Mitchell. And I'm going to call on my other friend, Scott Ciolik. He's a civil rights attorney. These attorneys, and I'm calling on my other friend, Attorney Cunningham, R. Cunningham. We need the attorneys to be the voice for the voiceless. We need these same attorneys to be on the front line as we go through this pandemic. Everyone has a voice, and we all have a voice and an obligation to say something when we see something. Oftentimes in law enforcement, their slogan is, if you see something, say something. And I'm imploring you to use your voice and your platform to say something. A threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And our local judges, the judges on Common Pleas Court, the judges at Toledo Municipal Court, we need you to get off your ego. Get off your high horse. Yes, offenders did something to go to jail. Yes, you sent them there because they violated the law. They violated probation. You gave them a chance, and they continued to. We understand. But we're asking for these judges to have a little more compassion. Judge Corey, Judge Burling, Judge Mandros, Linda Jennings, Judge Ian English, Judge Joe McNamara, I'm sorry, I didn't butcher your name, McNamara. Judge Cook, Stacy Cook, Judge Gary Cook. I'm imploring all of our judges in Toledo to set the standard Ohio-wide, to set the standard statewide, countrywide. We have to set the example. We got to be better than what we've been before. Judge Coolman, Toledo Common Pleas, or Toledo Municipal Court. Judge Conaway. We got to be better than what we've been. We got to set a better example than what we've been setting. There are folks that are confined in state prison, and they ought to be released if they are non-violent offenders. If you release them, put them on ankle monitor, put them on house arrest. There are other alternatives other than keeping them inside a locked facility where they can potentially die. I don't care if you made them report to probation 5 times a week, 4 times a week. Anything is better than being confined in an institution and potentially dying. It is no secret that people of color are more times likely able to contract the COVID-19 virus due to circumstances, due to our environment, our poor health, and opportunities that typically are not afforded to people of color. Now, I don't want to play the race card, but it was the White House that said this. It was Dr. Fauci that put this study out. It is medical experts across this country that says people of color, black folks, African Americans, NACRs, we are 10 times likely able to catch this virus than others, or to die from it. I'm employing our Governor Mike DeWine, the director of Ohio prisons, Miss Annette Chambers Smith. We're calling on you to do the moral thing and the honorable thing. And that is to release as many as we can non-violent offenders. This is a very, very serious matter. And many people of color, we all know someone that is locked up in prison. By default, we know someone that is locked up in jail for something that they did do or that they didn't do. As a black person, we know another black man or woman or young kid who was locked up in a prison or a jail for something that they either did do or they didn't do. But I believe fully and firmly that because you are guilty or because you were convicted doesn't necessarily mean that you committed that offense. And it definitely doesn't mean that you don't have your human rights. It doesn't mean that you don't have your human rights. You still should be treated in a dignified manner. And I want to fight to ensure that folks have that same opportunity. So the challenge is on the judges and the challenge is on these Toledo attorneys. I implore you guys to do the right thing, even when you think no one is looking. Peace.